This has been a critically important meeting. I'm just first of all going to comment on the scale of the challenge. The global average temperature rise since the pre-industrial time is not 1.2 degrees centigrade. That was the average between 2010 and 2020, which is the way the IPCC reports it. The global average temperature is now 1.35 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial level, which makes the challenge of keeping below 1.5 degrees centigrade seem unreachable. What is even worse than that is that the Arctic Circle region has now heated up by more than 3 degrees centigrade for that region above the pre-industrial level. And what that means is the Arctic Circle tipping points, the loss of ice from Greenland, the loss of methane from the permafrost region over the land surrounding the Arctic Circle, and the distortion of the jet stream that keeps the cold air up at the North Pole and the warm air down at the equatorial regions. That jet stream is now badly distorted and causing all of the disruptive extreme weather events being observed around the world. So is the world on track to net zero? That's a different sort of question. We're focusing there on emissions dropping rapidly. What we need is deep and rapid emissions reduction, far, far deeper and much more rapid than we're doing now. We've lost time, and we need a new strategy to deal with the challenge. Already the tipping points in the Arctic Circle region have gone, and that impacts on the whole world. So if we want to return the planet to a safe place for the future of humanity, we have to reduce the level of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases from the current over 500 parts per million, please, including methane, to about 350 parts per million or less, to approach the pre-industrial level of 270 parts per million. That's what we have to do in order to achieve a safe planet for the future. So how do we achieve that? What we must do is, first of all, deep and rapid emissions reduction. That is a sine qua non. We are cooked if we don't achieve that quickly. The second is we have to remove excess greenhouse gases from the atmosphere at scale. And that means focusing on techniques that would remove more than 1 billion tons of greenhouse gases per technique per annum. And that focus really means, yes, let's look at every possible opportunity to remove greenhouse gases and capture them, but we need finally to put much more effort into those that can capture considerable amounts of greenhouse gases. Now, I'm also asked to comment, what is the strategy for buying time? Well, we need 3 R's: remove, reduce, and also the third R is refreeze the Arctic. Now, as challenging as that sounds, that's what the Centre for Climate Repair at Cambridge is coordinating global work on, to see how we can refreeze the Arctic. And our process that we favour is creating white cloud cover for the 3 polar months over the North Pole. That just buys time so that we can have an orderly transition away from fossil fuels over the coming 10, 20, 30 years at most. And then we can also buy time to remove greenhouse gases at scale and bring them down to 350 parts per million. So refreezing the Arctic is the third R, and that is essential. These are the actions that are needed to create a manageable future for humanity. No less will do. Of course, we also have to adapt. We have to create resilience against the changes that are already happening. So we need to adapt to the changes that are happening before we have managed to get all of these 3 things in place. So I think you can see the nature of the challenge. And when people ask me, how did COP26 go? I say it barely touched on the problem. And COP27, I don't think it's going to go much further. The focus is rightly, I think, on African development. And there is a big program that I'm partly involved in to see that Africa goes net carbon zero. That is leapfrogging into the future so that it doesn't have to pay the cost of the transition as their economies grow. But we also need to see that the whole world is with us. Now that is unrealistic. There's 197 nations. We've got a war in Europe again at this incredibly late point in time. And so what we need is the willing nations to step to the front and do what they can to achieve all of these objectives.